So let me ask you, where do you get the majority of your diabetic knowledge? Is it from your diabetic team? Is it from your diabetic peers? Is it from just medical personnel in general, or maybe social media? I'm really curious, so leave it in the comments below where you usually get your education from. Hi everyone, and thanks for coming back to another Diabeteric video. Today we're going to talk about education. Okay, so to me, in my opinion, education is the number one thing. It is like the fundamental building block of how you can learn how to treat yourself, treat your diabetes in the best way possible. So I'm going to go way back to diagnosis and ask you guys, when you were first diagnosed, what kind of education did you get? I mean, mine was absolute crap. I learned how to inject insulin into an orange and how to test my blood sugar. And once my actual blood sugar was under control, because of course it was high when I was first diagnosed and admitted into the hospital, once my blood sugar was under control, they would not release me until I was able to inject myself with insulin. After that, I think I visited a nutritionist through the hospital maybe twice, talking about carbohydrate counting and portion control. And that's about it. I did not learn what diabetes was or how it functioned. I was warned against some scary things that could happen to me in the future if I didn't follow the steps I needed to do. But it really left a lot to be desired. I don't want to blame anybody for that, because although I did not receive even a fraction of what I should have, you know, what good does that do me now to blame anybody? But this is why I want to make this video to you, because if you feel like you have not gotten the proper education, it's on your hands to find out what this disease is all about and what's happening inside your body. I mean, even once you learn it, it's so confusing because your body is always changing and it's always throwing us curveballs. So in my opinion, learn as much as you can about it, and at least then you've got the building blocks to at least know what's going on. Upon diagnosis, did you go through a series of classes? Did your doctor just explain everything to you? Did you go to your local hospital and go through a series of classes, or have any kind of counseling services? It's a big change in our life, you know, it's a lot to deal with. So these are all kinds of things that you could have been offered upon diagnosis. I was not, maybe you were not. So let me know if it was a quick breeze through of information, or if it was a really thorough type of education that you received. If it was a quick breeze through, these are the basics, and you want to learn more, I highly recommend being extremely picky on your resources, on where you get information from. Now, aside from that, I've read comments about other diabetics maybe having an interaction with somebody in, you know, on vacation or at the supermarket, and they might ask what their pump is or what their glucose sensor was, and you know, somebody who was talking to a nurse, and the nurse said some sort of asinine comment to it like, are you going to grow out of your diabetes? And the person posting this was just in shock, because this was a nurse, and the nurse should know better that type 1s don't grow out of their diabetes. So this is something to consider when you're talking to a medical professional, because there are nurses in every different category of health, and when they go to learn their basic training, they learn a little bit of a lot of different things. And so what they might learn about diabetes might have been a little tiny amount, and they might have learned it, you know, 15, 20 years ago, because now they're working in a different field, and so that's not knowledge that they call upon very often. So when we're surprised that a nurse or even a doctor doesn't know very much about diabetes, it's because they're not a specialist in diabetes. If you're going to listen to medical staff, make sure you're listening to your endocrinologist team, the people who are trained and specialized in diabetes. I can't tell you how many times I've been surprised when a doctor or a nurse has asked me about my insulin pump. I mean, insulin pumps aren't anything new. They've been around for a really long time, but they just don't work in an area where they see a lot of diabetics with technology and devices to help them out. I actually was just talking to some doctors who were in training, because I go to a hospital that's a university hospital, and so they're young interns, I guess, and they were really enamored by my pump and my sensor, and I told them all about it and how it functioned, and afterwards, they thanked me for the class. And it was really funny because, they aren't in that area. This was in my nephrologist department. It's the kidney department. So although they have interaction with diabetic patients, they might be older patients or type 2 patients, or, kidney disease doesn't just affect diabetics. So they deal with a lot of other kinds of people with other health issues. And so we don't want to just say, oh, they're a nurse, they told me to do this, or they told me this was the best way that I should take my insulin, or this is, be really, really picky on who you get that information from. Make sure it's from a specialized person that has really trained in the diabetes field, okay? So now let's take that medical world just a step further and talk about our endocrinologist team, the ones that are specialized. If you have a doctor who is diabetic, that's the best, even though we know as diabetics that we are all different, and what kind of information that diabetic doctor could be giving you might work for you. It might need to be adjusted a little bit, because we all work differently, and we're all, we all need to adjust a little bit. Speaking about the actual endocrinologist or the endocrinologist nurse, or the people who are specialized in that area, who are not themselves diabetics, you have to remember that they've studied this and they've learned this material, but it's a basic floor plan. I mean, we're all different, and we all do things differently. We all absorb insulin differently. We all digest food differently, and there's not a concrete recipe for the best management that can be relatable to every single one of us. We have to adjust this. So if we go in and we talk to our doctor and they tell us something, we leave and we're like, whatever, that doctor doesn't know anything, so I'm not going to listen to anything else they say. No, that's not a good idea, because what they're giving you is the basic plan. That is the general rule for everybody. And then what we have to do is we have to adjust it to ourselves. So I mean, you want to talk to your doctor about any adjustments you want to make, but they're the ones that are the most educated to give you advice or direction on improving your education on diabetes. I'm going to give you a quick example of a few times I've had somebody in the medical profession that, well, I think my face says it all. The first one was a nurse that I had after my first transplant. Now, I was in a transplant ward. I was not in a diabetic ward, but I would still assume that the nurse would know enough about diabetes then to make this type of mistake. But it was snack time, and like I said, it was after the transplant, so I was not able to administer my own insulin at this moment. The nurses were responsible for that. So, and they usually would come by, before each meal and before each snack, and ask what my blood sugar was, or test my blood sugar and give me my insulin. But this At this time, nobody came by to give me any insulin. It was snack time, and I had received a piece of fruit, and I called the nurse to ask for my insulin. And the nurse told me, she looked at my chart and she said, well, no, you took Lantus this morning, so you don't need any more insulin. That's a 24-hour insulin. I said, yes, but I'm about to eat some fruit that has carbohydrates, and I need to bolus for the carbohydrates. And she said, no, the Lantus should cover that. And I argued with her and argued with her and argued with her, and she would not budge. And who paid the price? I did, because I was hungry and I ate my piece of fruit. And then 45 minutes later, I called her back because I knew my blood sugar was high because I hadn't gotten any insulin, and showed her my blood sugar, you know, because I think I had a scanner at that time, or we tested my blood sugar, I can't remember. But my blood sugar was like 350, and I said, okay, can I have my insulin now? And oh my goodness, you were right. Yeah, I know I was right. You should know better, but you know. Another situation where, again, I go to a university hospital, so there's a lot of doctors in training there. And, you know, I figured out something that works really well for me, and that is usually eating my dinner right when I get home from work, which is usually around 6 or 7 in the evening. Now, that might sound like dinner time to you in the United States or Canada or wherever you're watching from, but I live in Spain, and it's more typical to eat dinner very late here, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or later sometimes. So I told this doctor, well, what I've been doing is, instead of having a snack in the evening and then having dinner, which is what they would do, they would have their late afternoon snack and then have dinner much later. I said, I reverse the two, and I have dinner when I get home around 7 o'clock, and then I might have a light snack later before bed if I need to. And she said, oh, no, you've got to be really careful, because then you could have a low blood glucose at night. And I was thinking, what about the rest of the planet that eats on a regular hour, you know? Now, I was a little frustrated by her, but you have to think, okay, these people are learning, they just have a floor plan. They have a basic plan on what they need to tell us to do. And we ourselves have to kind of adapt it bit by bit. I would never ever suggest taking a huge adjustment in one step. I always suggest little by little, because, you know, you don't want to have an adverse effect. So, you know, these people of prestige, or, you know, people that we always think know the best, they usually do, but be careful. Again, be picky where you get your education from. Just because somebody says they're a nurse, they could be a nurse that works in the laboratory that withdraws blood all day long. They're not going to know a lot about diabetes, but maybe they heard something from their uncle, and then they tell you, oh, this is a really good thing to do, and I'm a nurse. And so, you know, just be careful. Be really, really picky. I mean, we are so picky with all the things we do in our life. Why not be extra picky about your education? Nowadays, we live in the age of technology when all you have to do is type a few keys and you've got the information right there. Just be sure to use a reliable source. Back in the Stone Age, when I was diagnosed, we didn't have that, you know. So it's a really, really useful tool, and you know, a great way to help educate yourself. So educate yourself. Change your diabetic status to diabeteric and be the best diabetic you can be. Thanks for watching. Click the like button if you like this video or learned something from it. Subscribe to our channel. Click the bell icon so you can be notified whenever new content is put out. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.